They said I joke too much, that I don't fit the mold. But last time I checked, I'm the one still bold.
Welcome to another episode of the Heart and Hustle podcast. I'm your host, Omar Hargrove, and today we're going to be talking about how you don't need a new year, you need a clearer why. And there's something about the start to a new year that quietly messes with people. Even if you don't necessarily get into the New Year's resolutions, even if you told yourself that you're not going to really fall into that kind of pressure, it still ends up showing up. A new calendar flips, and suddenly there's this underlying expectation that something also should flip about you. And you start feeling this need to change faster. You start feeling like you need to decide something soon, be clear, you need to do better. And you may not even know what that means yet, but you can feel the sense of urgency that you ought to do something. I mean, how many of you have ever had this moment where you weren't even thinking about a New Year's resolution, but then all of a sudden the people around you start talking about what their New Year's resolution is or what they're going to do differently in the new year, all these changes. And so you feel like this urgency or this compelling that you need to do something too. Like, why haven't you already planned something? And maybe you just even throw a couple ideas out there and like, yeah, I think this new year I'm going to do this. And you claim this resolution or this change. But what's dangerous about this kind of pressure is that it disguises itself as motivation. Like, well, yeah, I guess it sounds productive. It sounds reasonable. It sounds responsible. But a lot of the time, it's not clearly pushing you forward. It's just anxiety pulling you into doing something, feeling like you should do something for the sake of doing something. And today I want to just slow that down because most people don't actually need this new year. They need to reconnect with their why. And until that happens, no amount of fresh starts will really feel like enough. And so let's start by talking about breaking this myth of the fresh start. We love the idea of starting over. January feels like permission to reset everything at once. And you're able to go out with new habits, new routines, new goals, new expectations. Of course, we didn't meet any of our goals from last year, but this is a new start. This January is different. And a new year doesn't automatically bring clarity though. It doesn't just all of a sudden create discipline. That's why gym memberships go up for January and then go down for February. It doesn't heal these wounds that we have or carry. It doesn't fix our therapy needs. It doesn't give us direction. All it really does is mark time. And when you expect a calendar to do work that only purpose can do, we end up frustrated and feeling defeated. And that's why so many people feel discouraged before the first month is even over, not because they failed, but because they unknowingly believe that the shift in time would somehow produce this magical shift in their life, even though they didn't have this meaningful connection to it in the first place. Change doesn't come from a date. It's not superstitious to start something fresh in January. It really comes from alignment. And that alignment begins when you understand why you're doing what you're doing in the first place. And so let's talk about that. Why motivation can't carry you. So again, we're talking about the idea of the calendar year. We're talking about the idea of even just getting motivated and hyped with the calendar. Motivation feels powerful at the beginning of the year. You feel motivated to try something new. It can even feel emotional. It could feel exciting, and it gives you this sense of energy to start. But motivation is also unreliable, and it disappears when that progress feels slower than anticipated. It fades when maybe life interrupts you. It vanishes when the work becomes repetitive, unglamorous, or even just plain out hard. I mean, going to the simple, what a lot of people do in the beginning of the year is starting that new workout routine, and we're gonna just get super shredded. Our whole life is gonna change, and this year we're gonna just randomly get in super healthy shape. And then when we realize that a lot of that progress is dependent on changing our whole eating schedule. It's not just about going to the gym and running on the treadmill for 20 minutes. We start to realize this is a lot less glamorous than I thought. This is a lot harder than I thought. Or maybe you're doing pretty good at the gym, but then you got sick one weekend and now that motivation doesn't feel as great and it's harder to get back on schedule. See, we hit these little ruts, and really at the end of the day, your why is different. Your why doesn't need excitement. If you have this motivation that's derived from your why rather than the calendar, it doesn't need excitement to function. It is operating underneath emotion. It holds you steady when feelings will fluctuate. It doesn't matter if you're having a good day or a bad day, you're motivated by this why. Why am I really doing this? Why do I want to do this? And it's able to endure much more than motivation. Your why is what gets you out of bed when no one else notices. It's what keeps you faithful when the results are delayed, and it's what keeps you grounded when comparison tries to rush you. When people quit, it's rarely because they didn't want it badly enough. It's usually because they didn't know why it really mattered deeply enough. And as we're going to the new year, maybe the biggest focus is starting with why. It changes the pace. Most people start with that question: what should I do this year? What goals should I make? What habits should I build? What needs to change? But the more important question is, why does this matter in this season of my life? When you start with why, everything slows down in a more healthy way. You stop chasing urgency. It's not about trying to get these quick fixes. You stop trying to overhaul your entire life in 1 month. You stop forcing growth that hasn't been prepared for yet. A clear why doesn't make things easy, but it makes them meaningful. It gives direction to your effort instead of letting effort scatter in a dozen different directions. And meaning, that's what we're really talking about. Meaning is what sustains consistency when discipline alone starts to feel heavy. That why is the thing that can sustain you. And when burnout is really when burnout happens, I feel like it's more so about disconnection than it is about an exasperation of energy. Burnout isn't always overworking. Sometimes it's just about working disconnected from purpose. And you can do good things and still feel drained if you've lost sight of why they mattered in the first place. You can stay disciplined and feel empty if the work no longer feels aligned. That heaviness is often an invitation, not a failure. It's an opportunity to pause and ask if what you're doing is still connected to what you're called to do. And sometimes you don't really need to rest. You need to realign your why. You need to reconnect to the work to the reason of why you're doing what you're doing. And when your why is restored, then your energy often follows. You can look at that in any aspect, whether it's being a parent, being a spouse, if it's for your fitness journey, your health, your job, your career. It's not that you're exasperated from just hitting your head against the wall. It's that you feel like you're not really reaching that why, or maybe you've forgotten the why in the first place. And your why can be quiet but still powerful. One of the most freeing realizations is that your why doesn't need to be impressive. It doesn't have to sound ambitious. It doesn't have to look successful to other people. It doesn't even have to be something that you post or explain. It just has to be honest. It has to be authentic to you. And maybe your why this year is really stability after chaos. Maybe it's healing after a loss. Maybe it's finding consistency after years of starting and stopping. Maybe it's learning how to be present instead of productive. Quiet whys often build the strongest foundations, and foundations matter more than speed. If you have an authentic why that you could really stand on, that's one that can endure any type of changes, big or small, then it doesn't really matter how fast you can accelerate. You're standing on something that really matters, and it has to be honest and authentic to you. Steady intention is always better than forced momentum. When your why is clear, you move differently. You don't rush, you don't panic when things move slowly, you don't quit when the progress feels too small. You become steady instead of frantic. And intentional instead of reactive, faithful instead of pressured. And it's that kind of steadiness that doesn't really look flashy, but it's in those, it's the one that is able to last. It has longevity, even though it doesn't necessarily look that glorious. So if you're already feeling behind in the year before it even started, I want you to hear this so clearly. Pressure isn't the solution. Purpose is. You don't need a new year to become someone else. You need a clear reason why. Why to become who you're already called to be. And let this be the year that you move with clarity instead of chaos, with intention instead of urgency, with faithfulness instead of frenzy. And it's all that being said, I hope that this helps set you up for this new year. I hope that it made a difference for your life as we close out 2025. But until next time, have a great life.
Then tell me why you still watch every move I take. You call me phony, nah, I'm just free. And if you still doubt me, go by my book.